between, of course, the former royal known as Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, Sarah Ferguson, the former Duchess of York, and more importantly, His Royal Highness Prince William, the Prince of Wales, is well and truly over. Oh no, there's still more to reveal, as ever. Let me explain.
Camilla Parker Bowles discovered she was being systematically stripped of her royal responsibilities, not through a private conversation in a quiet drawing room, but from the exact same official press release the general public read on a cold Tuesday morning. The complete absence of a prior phone call or a respectful head-up was not an administrative oversight. It was an intentional, calculated message delivered from the very top of the modernizing palace hierarchy. You do not accidentally forget to notify the Queen Consort that her official calendar is being wiped clean, that her patronages are being quietly reassigned, and that her presence has been excised from upcoming state visits. That is not a failure of communication. That is an eviction notice, drafted in the cold, polite language of high-stakes diplomacy. She spent over 50 years playing the longest, most difficult game in modern royal history. She endured decades of overwhelming public hostility, was branded an unforgivable villain in the press, and lived under the endless, looming shadow of Princess Diana. She survived all of it by remaining silent, avoiding tell-all media interviews, staying close to King Charles, and letting the passage of time quietly do the heavy lifting. By the time Charles ascended the throne, her patient endurance had seemingly paid off, transforming her from one of the most polarizing figures in Britain into the recognized Queen Consort, with the official blessing of Queen Elizabeth II herself. To go from that incredible, decades-long climb to suddenly reading a public announcement that your duties are being dismantled is a brutal reality check. The official palace statement was carefully crafted with all the standard corporate buzzwords. It spoke of streamlining the institution, realigning core responsibilities, achieving greater operational efficiency, and modernizing the royal brand for a new era. But royal observers and sharp-eyed analysts immediately noticed what was glaringly absent from every single paragraph. Camilla's name was missing. Her name was gone from major diplomatic briefings. Her presence was erased from high-profile international schedules. Key charitable patronages she had championed for well over a decade were abruptly transferred, some to younger faces, and others cancelled entirely without explanation. Staff members working inside Clarence House described her initial reaction upon reading the published document as nothing short of volcanic. She stared at the screen in complete disbelief as the full weight of the public statement landed. Decades of careful image rehabilitation, quiet loyalty, and strategic patience seemed to be unraveling in a single news cycle. She turned to her immediate aides, her voice shaking with uncontainable anger, and demanded to know who had authorized the document without her knowledge. After everything I have done, after every single thing I endured for this family, he does this to me, she reportedly exclaimed to her inner circle. The individual she was referring to was not a member of the press office, nor was it a distant advisor trying to save money. She was pointing the finger directly at her stepson, Prince William. Hi viewers. Do you think Prince William was right to strip Camilla's duties to modernize the monarchy, or did he go too far by humiliating her in public? Drop your simple yes or no in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to Royal Family Series for more deep dive updates on this unfolding palace war. The timeline of how this strategy unfolded makes the situation even more sinister. This sweeping restructure was not a sudden, erratic decision made overnight to handle a temporary crisis. The master document, detailing the total realignment of royal duties, had been circulating through confidential palace channels for months. It was framed internally as a comprehensive blueprint for the future of the crown, designed to trim unnecessary operational bloat and present a streamlined face to the world. King Charles had personally reviewed early drafts of the proposal. He had even signed off on specific administrative sections regarding budget allocations and public appearances. But according to high-level palace insiders, the king did not fully grasp the immediate, devastating consequences the document would have on his wife's public standing. Whether his apparent ignorance was genuine emotional exhaustion or a convenient piece of royal misdirection remains a subject of intense debate behind closed doors. By lunchtime on the day the press release went live, the atmosphere inside the palace was razor-sharp. Camilla did not request a meeting with the press officers, nor did she reach out to Prince William's office just yet. She demanded an immediate, private audience with her husband. She marched into the king's private study, holding the printed documents up, like key evidence in a high-stakes trial. She confronted Charles directly, her voice cutting through the quiet room, asking a single, sharp question that demanded an immediate answer. "Did you know about this?" The king froze. He hesitated for several long, agonizing seconds before trying to formulate a diplomatic response. But that brief, uncomfortable hesitation gave Camilla every answer she needed. She realized instantly that her husband had allowed his heir to execute a quiet, systematic purge of her influence right under his nose. "This is an absolute betrayal," she told him, standing her ground in the middle of the room. "I stood by your side when the entire world spat on my name. I took the blame for everything, and now that you are on the throne, I am just dropped." Charles attempted to soothe the tension, explaining that William was taking on a much larger leadership role to prepare for the future, and that the restructuring was a necessary strategic move rather than a personal attack. Camilla refused to accept the excuse. She could see Prince William's fingerprints across every single line of the decree. She knew this was not about efficiency. It was about authority, image, and total control over the future of the crown. She made it clear that the matter was far from settled, demanding a face-to-face meeting with the man who had drafted the plan. A second, highly restricted meeting was scheduled for later that afternoon, a tense, three-person confrontation between King Charles, Queen Camilla, and Prince William. As the doors to the private study closed for that second meeting, Camilla walked in with cold, razor-sharp intent, ready to defend the legacy she had spent 50 years building. But as she prepared to confront her stepson, an unexpected detail surfaced regarding the access logs of the draft documents. A confidential memo revealed that William's team had quietly secured the king's final sign-off weeks prior during a private weekend retreat, deliberately timing the public release for a day when Camilla was away from the main palace grounds. Someone had made sure she would be completely powerless to stop it before the world found out. Camilla entered the private study with cold, razor-sharp intent, determined not to plead for her position, but to launch a direct confrontation. The heavy double doors closed, sealing the three of them inside a room where the air was thick with decades of unspoken resentment. She looked Prince William dead in the eye and laid out her grievance without hesitation. She told him he was stripping away responsibilities she had rightfully earned over 50 years, not responsibilities she was born into, and certainly not duties handed to her on a silver platter. Prince William did not flinch, nor did he raise his voice. He stood with complete composure, his posture rigid and his tone dropping into a calm, surgical cadence. He told her clearly that the decisions were not personal, but purely strategic. Modernizing the monarchy required absolute clarity. The public demanded an institution that reflected the future generation, a lean and streamlined organization, free from legacy scandals, step-family friction, and decades of tabloid baggage. In William's eyes, the monarchy was no longer just an ancient dynasty governed by sentimental tradition. It was a global brand that required ruthless management. Every single face representing the crown had to align with a pristine, forward-looking vision. Camilla, with her complicated history and polarizing past, simply did not fit the picture he was building. When William's advisors spoke about clarity, they meant removing any element that threatened to distract from the long-term survival of the throne. Camilla's composure cracked under the weight of his cold logic. She stepped closer, her voice slicing through the quiet room, as she issued a fierce reminder of the current hierarchy. "You are not king yet," she told him, her eyes locking onto his with absolute defiance. And if you think I am going to step into the shadows without a fight, you do not understand who I am at all." Yet, as she asserted her standing, the true dynamic in the room became painfully obvious. King Charles sat between them at the end of the long mahogany table, pale, visibly exhausted, and completely paralyzed by emotional conflict. The king had waited longer than any heir in British history to inherit the crown, only to find himself trapped in a devastating crossfire between the woman he loved and the son who represented the future of his dynasty. Charles tried to intercede, offering soft, hesitant excuses about shifting administrative loads and long-term planning. But his inability to take a firm stand served as a quiet surrender of his own court. By remaining passive, the king was effectively allowing his heir to dictate the terms of the reign. Staff members standing outside the double doors later noted that the silence coming from the king's desk was the most telling sound of the entire afternoon. Why was the future king acting with such uncompromising speed? What gave him the confidence to reshape the royal household while his father was still on the throne? For William, every move was driven by a deep-seated determination to avoid the mistakes of the past. He had watched the institution almost destroy itself during the turbulent decades of his youth, and he was resolved never to allow personal sentiment to endanger the crown's stability. He recognized that the monarchy's survival depended entirely on relevance, discipline, and absolute control over its public image. Internal access logs and confidential scheduling memos revealed that William's team had spent months quietly preparing for this exact moment. They had conducted extensive public perception audits, mapped out long-term media strategies, and restructured internal budget allocations to ensure that high-visibility projects were systematically diverted toward his own office. Camilla realized with sickening clarity that she was not fighting an impulse or a temporary disagreement. She was fighting a fully operational corporate machinery that had already been put into motion. The power had shifted, and no amount of private arguing could undo the administrative changes that had been locked into place. The meeting ended without a single apology, a promise of compromise, or a reversal of the public press release. Camilla was the first to leave the study, walking out with a rigid spine and a face of pure stone, ignoring the aides stationed along the corridor. William exited moments later, entirely unbothered by the storm he had created, heading straight back to his office to review the next phase of the schedule. King Charles remained alone in the quiet room for nearly an hour, staring at the empty chairs. A senior staff member who passed by the open door later described it as the exact day the internal foundation of the palace cracked, not publicly for the cameras, but deeply, permanently, behind closed doors. As night fell over the estate, the immediate operational fallout began to ripple through the lower levels of the household. Orders arrived from the executive office, instructing administrative staff to begin archiving Camilla's private patronages file and rerouting all future diplomatic correspondence directly through the Prince and Princess of Wales's team, ensuring that any remaining influence she held was systematically neutralized before the week was over. While Queen Camilla absorbed the sting of her forced administrative retreat, Catherine, Princess of Wales, was elevated with deliberate, high-profile precision. The contrast between the two women could not have been starker. Where Camilla met the changes with behind-the-scenes fury, Catherine stepped into the spotlight with complete, effortless composure. To the public, she was simply fulfilling her role as the loyal, poised wife of the future king. But inside the palace, senior courtiers understood that Catherine was not merely ascending. She was being systematically positioned to take command of the royal stage. This dramatic shift was executed seamlessly across every official channel. Major charitable patronages and high-visibility initiatives that had once been closely associated with Camilla were quietly reallocated to Catherine. The official rationale handed to the press was modernization, redirecting historical causes toward a younger, forward-facing audience. Headlines across national newspapers shifted overnight from reporting on Queen Camilla's engagements to celebrating Princess Kate's leadership on the global stage. William ensured his wife was placed firmly at the center of every major state gathering. Every photograph, every coordinated public appearance, and every carefully timed statement was engineered to project youth, stability, and institutional strength. The subtle message delivered to the world was undeniable. In terms of modern power, cultural symbolism, and long-term influence, Catherine was already being viewed as the actual queen-in-waiting, rendering Camilla's official title a hollow ceremonial footnote. To protect this strategic transition from media interference, William's press operation deployed a masterclass in news management. Whenever stories regarding Camilla's diminishing role began to gather traction online, the palace press office released high-value positive media coverage. A sudden, heartwarming visit by Catherine to a children's hospital, a family photograph, or an announcement regarding Prince George's upcoming milestones would instantly dominate the front pages, effectively burying any uncomfortable questions about internal palace feuds. The strategy was working seamlessly until an unexpected leak cracked the carefully managed blackout. A high-ranking palace insider, frustrated by the ruthless execution of the rebrand, leaked an explosive account to a major Sunday newspaper. The report revealed that Camilla had confronted King Charles in tears inside his private study, demanding to know why she was being systematically pushed out of the inner circle. The story exploded across international media outlets within hours. It was not shocking because it sounded outrageous. It was explosive because it confirmed what royal observers had been suspecting for weeks. Queen Camilla had not voluntarily chosen to step back from public life to ease her schedule. She had been pushed out by a calculated internal power play led by her own stepson. The leak completely shattered the illusion of a united royal front, plunging the household back into public scrutiny and intense debate. Commentators began asking sharp, uncomfortable questions on live broadcasts. Why was the Queen Consort suddenly absent from key diplomatic functions? Why had so many of her signature causes been reassigned without a formal explanation? Why was the palace press office refusing to clarify her exact position in the new structure? Inside Clarence House, the media explosion provided Camilla with a sudden, dangerous burst of leverage. The public narrative was no longer entirely in William's control, and the Crown was once again facing allegations of ruthless internal warfare. Yet, Prince William's team responded with characteristic, ice-cold resolve. Rather than issuing panic denials or scrambling to offer compromises, they tightened access control, launched an internal investigation to identify the leaker, and doubled down on Catherine's public schedule. Camilla now found herself standing at an agonizing crossroads. She could accept her reduced status, retreat gracefully into the background, and spend her remaining years as a quiet shadow beside an aging king. Or she could use her deep knowledge of palace mechanics to push back against her stepson, risking a full-blown public scandal that could tear the monarchy apart. As she weighed her options in near-total isolation, a secure document arrived from the palace legal team. The memo laid out the strict boundaries of her new administrative reality, warning that any further unauthorized leaks to the press would result in the immediate, permanent removal of her remaining personal staff allowances. Prince William had backed her into a tight, inescapable corner, demonstrating that in his vision for the crown, strategic utility would always override personal history. Inside the quiet rooms of Ray Mill House, her private country retreat far away from the polished corridors of Buckingham Palace, Queen Camilla sat in near-total isolation. She looked out over the sweeping green lawns, contemplating the bitter irony of her new reality. For more than half a century, she had endured the relentless weight of public hostility. She had been vilified in the global press, cast as the ultimate antagonist in a royal tragedy, and forced to build her life in the long, overwhelming shadow of Princess Diana. She had survived all of it through sheer endurance, absolute silence, and a stubborn refusal to engage in public battles. She played the longest, most grueling game in modern royal history, and against every conceivable odds, she won. She reached the very top of the institution, standing beside King Charles as his crowned queen consort. Yet, after 50 years of sacrificing her reputation for the crown, the final blow did not come from a hostile press or an unforgiving public. It came from inside the palace walls. It came from her own stepson. Prince William did not need a tabloid campaign or a public scandal to sideline her. He simply used the administrative machinery of the state to rewrite the future of the monarchy, declaring her legacy expired with the cold, unyielding stroke of a pen. Think about the psychological weight resting on her shoulders in that quiet country house. What hurts most is not merely the loss of official duties or reassigned patronages. It is the realization that her decades of loyalty meant nothing when measured against the cold, corporate utility of a modern rebrand. However, anyone inside the palace who believes Camilla will simply vanish into the background is making a monumental miscalculation. A woman who survived 50 years of intense royal warfare does not easily surrender her standing. Camilla is not Prince Harry. She will never sit down for a televised tell-all interview. She will not write an explosive, revelatory memoir detailing the inner workings of the royal household. That is simply not her style, and she understands the devastating consequences of firing weapons into her own home. Instead, her power lies in what she knows. She has lived inside the very engine room of the monarchy for decades. She has been present for confidential strategy sessions, high-level diplomatic compromises, and delicate family agreements that the public has never seen. She knows where every single institutional skeleton is buried. William's strategy relies entirely on the assumption that Camilla's deep devotion to King Charles will force her to stay quiet, accept her diminished role, and absorb the blow for the sake of her husband's fragile reign. But human endurance has its absolute limits, and when an individual who has sacrificed everything is pushed into an inescapable corner, even the most calculated plan can unravel. Then came the sudden development that sent shockwaves through the executive offices of Buckingham Palace. Late on a Thursday afternoon, a private courier arrived at the palace gates carrying a single, sealed envelope addressed personally to King Charles. The letter came directly from Camilla's private residence, written in her own distinct handwriting. Inside, she delivered a quiet, devastating declaration. She informed the king that she was stepping back from all joint official appearances indefinitely, refusing to stand beside him at upcoming state functions, while her administrative status remained stripped. King Charles sat at his desk holding the letter, completely paralyzed by the escalating crisis. The king was trapped in an agonizing personal nightmare, torn between his deep love for his wife and the unyielding demands of his heir. By failing to step in and stop William's aggressive restructure, Charles had unwittingly allowed his own household to divide against itself. His hesitation had cost him the peace of his home. Sitting alone in his study with his wife's letter resting on the mahogany desk, the king chose the only response left to him: complete, heavy silence. Functionally, the shift is already absolute. Camilla's official title as Queen Consort remains intact on paper, but her practical power, her visibility, and her influence inside the House of Windsor have been thoroughly dismantled. The future now belongs entirely to Prince William and Catherine. They represent a new era, leaner, younger, ruthlessly strategic, and focused on global brand management above all else. They did not wait for permission to claim the spotlight, and they did not allow personal sentiment to delay their vision. Camilla's public story has been forcibly rewritten. She is no longer a central figure in the daily narrative of the crown. She has been transformed into a ceremonial shadow, watching from afar as the institution she gave her life to sustain moves forward without her input. Her current retreat is not a complete defeat. It is a strategic pause. In the high-stakes game of palace politics, absolute silence is often just the calm before the next major storm. Thank you for watching this deep dive on Royal Family series. If you want to stay informed on every major shift, hidden conflict, and breaking story inside the palace walls, Make sure to hit that subscribe button right now and turn on all post notifications. What secret financial documents were uncovered during the latest audit of the royal estates? And how will Prince William react when a hidden private ledger from the late Queen's personal archive links Camilla's inner circle to an unauthorized offshore trust? Drop your thoughts and theories in the comments section below, and make sure you join us for our explosive next episode on Royal Family series.